Hi, I'm Alex McCord and welcome to The Real Deal on TheStir.com. Today is our weekly day of marriage with episode 7 of WeTV's Marriage Bootcamp Reality Stars, as well as episode 3 of the brand new FYI channel's Married at First Sight. Let's go there first. Episode 3 of Married at First Sight was all about the honeymoon. While last week we were still at the wedding, this episode the couples will be alone for the very first time. First with cameras, then without. This reminds me of something that Dr. Pepper Schwartz said previously in an episode. The couples all have to go through the ritual of a traditional marriage in order to take the process seriously and get into the right frame of mind for this love experiment. That includes things like a wedding night and sharing a bathroom. Frankly, to me, the sharing a bathroom part seems the most daunting. By the time most men see their wives without makeup, they've usually already seen them naked. I appreciated the awkwardness of the couples brushing their teeth and inspecting each other's beauty products the morning after the wedding. More evidence that they really don't know each other. For Monet and Vaughn, this was perhaps more awkward than the others as they actually consummated their marriage on the wedding night. And a side note, I will completely own it. A big part of watching this episode was, when are they all going to do it? I cannot be the only one who thought that. But for Monet and Vaughn, this is not a one-night stand. There is no walk of shame, no victory lap home. They have to look at each other in the morning. But we'll come back to these guys in a minute. In hindsight, Courtney and Jason probably had the healthiest wedding night. Attracted to each other, they nevertheless held off on intimacy and took things slowly. And in a way, the presence of reality cameras probably helped them out. For example, there is a hot tub in their honeymoon suite, and anytime there is a hot tub available on reality TV, behind the scenes, the producers are hoping the cast will get into it. It lowers inhibitions, you see some skin, that's all win-win from a ratings perspective. But if you have just married a stranger and you're being filmed, swimwear is a good idea. I'm thinking having the cameras there was great for Jason and Courtney because it removed any awkwardness. Are we going to get into the hot tub? If we are we going to go on natural or are we wearing swimsuits? They didn't really have to think about that part. So I'll admit, so far the Jason and Courtney storyline seems perfect to me, which makes me think that the other shoe is about to drop. It's making me nervous. But so far so good. Before we go back to Monet and Vaughn, let's discuss Jamie and Doug. What a ride they took this episode. First, the morning after the wedding, Jamie couldn't remember Doug's last name, and no touching was allowed, and no reference to the word wife. This could have gone horribly wrong, and the way their story was presented, Jamie really seemed a bit mean. However, if we think that, we are forgetting one thing. If our 4 experts have done their job, Jamie and Doug are perfectly matched. It should come as no surprise then that Doug instinctively knew how to deal with Jamie. He didn't get offended, or if he did, we didn't see it. He doesn't push, he allows her to set the rules for physical contact and pretty much everything else. He made a heartbreaking statement at one point. I'm working on being a likable guy so she'll want to hang out with me. Ouch, but effective. As they progress on their St. Thomas honeymoon, swimming with sea lions, beach walking, etc., they find themselves having fun and loosening up. It seemed like a grand love story because gradually Jamie's ice melted and we end the episode with a good old makeout session. I loved the way their story arc was constructed and I can't wait to see what happens next with them. Now, back to Monet and Vaughn, because they were the only ones who left me scratching my heads this week. I feel like the cameras missed something, didn't you? Why is Vaughn suddenly dissatisfied with Monet? What happened? If this were a docu-soap show like The Housewives, I would be suspicious. I'd think that Vaughn decided he didn't have enough camera time and invented a problem. But I don't think it's that. I think that the couples were probably allowed off-camera honeymoon time and somehow something went wrong. See, this is a risk you take in reality TV. If you put these married strangers on 24/7 filming, they would all freeze up and nothing would happen. So you have to allow them some downtime, knowing that you might miss something. And it looks like they did. The only narrative we have stitching this together is Vaughn's confessional interviews and his confrontation with Monet. He feels that when he opens up, she's not paying attention. And there's no reason not to believe him, but there's also no evidence. Monet, in her confessionals, says that she struggles to be vulnerable, and we see her react to Vaughn's accusation with a willingness to work on it. So far, they seem like the problem couple, but we're only on episode 3, so that will undoubtedly change. I'm looking forward to the next big hurdle, going back to life and integrating everyone's work schedules, not to mention moving in together. Next, let's move from first chance to last chance with WeTV's Marriage Boot Camp reality stars. This episode of Boot Camp was teased with a cliffhanger. There's an ambulance, and unless a freak accident occurred, whom do you think that ambulance could be for? Tanisha and Clive, of course. But what happened? Did Clive finally snap and kill her? Well, before we get to that, let's deconstruct the episode. This week we have two major exercises, both of which progress without the Jersey Shore contingent. Jenny Farley and Roger Matthews left the House on MTV business, returning at the end of the episode. There is one thing, however, to say to them, and that is congratulations. While last week on Marriage Boot Camp, Jenny's pregnancy was announced, this week in real life, the first photos of Jenny and Roger's baby girl were released via In Touch Weekly. Congratulations to them, and may she sleep through the night really soon. Back in the boot camp, the couples go through a releasing exercise where they identify someone who hurt them and forgive that person. This is followed up by a door lemma. What is that? Each individual had to make a life choice and walk through that door. If they made a selfish choice, the door led nowhere. If they made a selfless choice, they might meet their mate, but only if their mate also went through the right door. In a shocking upset, Trista and Ryan, the Bachelorette couple, did not end up together, nor did our Orange County housewives, Gretchen and Slade. Both Trista and Gretchen made selfish choices and wound up staring at their mirror images, not their men. In fact, only one couple chose each other, Tracy Braxton and her husband Kevin. Side note, as I was watching this moment on television, my husband Simon walked into the room. He saw Tracy and Kevin crying and hugging, and he immediately teared up. Simon is my litmus test. He is everyman viewer. Everyman viewer wants to see these couples work out. Everyman viewer does not want to see Tanisha beating up her husband. But there's lots to deconstruct there, so let's discuss it. I have to wonder what the producers and the Carrolls were expecting when they cast Tanisha and Clive. Now, I can't speak to the boot camp pre-production process, but on couples therapy, we had pretty significant psych evaluations before we entered that 24/7 filming house. I always like to joke that they want you crazy enough to make good TV, but not so crazy that you'll stab someone. Out of all of the couples participating in the door lemma exercise, only Tanisha and Clive were a double negative. Neither of them chose the door leading to their partner. That, combined with some smart editing, made us realize these two need to get as far away from each other as possible. What do I mean by smart editing? I'm not being sarcastic. It really was smart. Did you notice that after the earlier release exercise, Clive changed? He was standing taller, more assertive, he was a better communicator, and Tanisha didn't like it. Suddenly, Clive was doing everything she wanted him to do, and she still didn't like him. We've heard loud and clear all season that Tanisha wants to respect her man, and she doesn't respect Clive. That was hammered home in the release exercise when counselor Jim Carroll physically challenged her. Tanisha wanted to beat up her demons, and Jim was both smart and fast from the therapy and a TV perspective. Up to that point, Tanisha had been role-playing with a young female therapist. Hearing that it might get physical, Jim switched places with her and said, "Hit me if you want to." She didn't. She couldn't. She respected Jim and the process. But later in the episode, Tanisha could not get through a confessional interview with Clive without hitting him. For me, it crossed the line into abuse. I wondered how quickly production would step in, because no reality show should allow domestic violence or any type of physical abuse. And they did step in once Tanisha stood up. And obviously neither you nor I know exactly what happened that day. But here's my theory. Tanisha was in the wrong, and she knew she was in the wrong. So she started having chest pain. Thinking of people that I know who are similar to Tanisha, I'm guessing she might have been trying to pull the focus off her abuse of her husband Clive and back where she wanted it on herself. That may have precipitated an actual anxiety attack, and those can look and feel and present like heart attacks. Now, if we find out next week that Tanisha actually did have a heart attack, I will feel terrible. But this is how I feel today. In all the marriage and therapy television I've seen, this is the first time I'm actively rooting for a couple to break up. It's not a good feeling, but it's the real deal. We'll have to see next week in the season finale whether these two get any closure and what happens with everyone else. Let me know what you thought in the comments. For now, I am Alex McCord. You're watching The Real Deal on thestir.com. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, and I will see you tomorrow.